I'd like to acknowledge Australia's First Nation people as the traditional custodians of the land, and for this episode in particular, the Gunai people. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging.
Now, as much as I love a Pinot mosh pit, as it was at the Royal Exhibition Buildings and 4,000 people drinking one grape variety, is wild. We're certainly not going back that way. We've come back to a bit more session-based and just pulling it back.
This is Over a Glass. I'm Shanteh Wale. If you work in wine, chances are you know Dan Sims. If you don't, I question your integrity. Dan does it all. He's the founder and CEO of Revel Global, the company behind those epic food and wine events. He is an artist in all things beverage communication and engagement. Hi Dan, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Shanteh. What an intro. And also got to say, I'm a massive fan of your podcast and I'm so grateful to have the chance to chat to you today. I feel very humbled.
Oh, that is so kind of you, and I've been wanting to get you on here for some time, and I know, well, you're a busy man, and I say that to a lot of people, but you really are a busy man. I was looking at what I was going to ask you, and I thought, you know what, it's probably easiest to say, is there anything in the beverage industry that you don't do?
I don't make wine.
Never? You've never made a wine?
Well, I've never made a wine, and I say that as a caveat. I did do a wine in Argentina, a Malbec, but I won't say I made it because that would be disrespectful for all winemakers. But as a very good friend of mine, Lincoln Riley, once said to me, Dan, we're not winemakers, we're wine stylists. And very thing. But I don't make wine. And it's a hard thing making wine, and I have too much respect for those amazing wine people to try and to do that. But yeah, there's so much to do in wine, right? Like there's so many avenues of it, and I think it's all part of it is that curiosity around wine in general, right? And I think, but yeah, I'll leave winemaking to the winemakers.
Well, that's the only thing I could think of, because for everything else, you have had a hand in nearly all the other facets of the industry. But we have to start somewhere. So take me back to the beginning. How did your intrigue in wine all begin?
Jeez, it's going a fair way back. I think I was working in a restaurant in Hampton, and it was just a great suburban restaurant, but it was run by two brothers who'd worked. One of them had worked at the Latin in Melbourne, and I was doing as you do. Finished school. I went to uni. I was very bad at it. I didn't really find my place there. But I was curious about hospitality, and then I just got curious about wine. And I was very lucky that I said that to one of the brothers, and they took me under their wing and started showing me different wines and got me intrigued. And I think, and again, I say that word curious a bit. It really sparked that curiosity, and I was intrigued. It was like, well, how does this work? Why is it different? And where does it all come from? And I think that was really the catalyst of it, and then just went from there. And I went to wine regions as you do, and then got to work with great restaurants and even retail and tasting and learning and listening. I think that was really it. Is that the short version? My memory serves me correctly.
You summed it up really well. How did you, back then, back then, I make you sound really old.
It is back then. I joined a board. I was invited to join a board of Wine Victoria, and then I officially said, that's it, I'm now officially old. I've reached that point. Someone has asked me to join a board. I'm actually old.
No, you're just the wisest person there. I love it. So how did you go about kind of going, okay, I'm interested in wine, I'm curious, I know I've got to do some reading. How else did you go about starting then? Because there wasn't perhaps as many really established avenues of how to go about being a sommelier then. I mean, there was a little bit, but tell me a little bit about the process then.
Yeah, you're totally right. There wasn't the more established training courses like WSET and Court of Master Sommeliers. They just weren't around. And at the time I did just a couple of wine courses that are available at the time. But then it was really learnt on the ground in restaurants, and I was lucky enough to work with some really great people and be mentored. And it was really from opening up bottles and tasting, and I've been asking questions, doing a huge amount of reading, doing a lot of tasting, and doing a lot of listening. And I think that was really the biggest thing then, was just listening to how people spoke about wine, how they communicated it, and really then trying to fine tune that to how you took that information and condensed it and then communicated to that people in the restaurant. And that was always the part that really got me interested. Was wine is in essence something really simple and amazing and beautiful, but we tend to make it into something so insanely complicated and insanely nerdy, because you can't help but do it, because the more you learn about wine, the more you realise how much you don't know, and the more enthusiastic you get, the more you want to tell people how much you've learnt and share that enthusiasm. But for some people, it's they just want a glass of wine in a restaurant and have a meal. So it's it was really sort of a lot of on the ground training at that time. But then I've done Set 1 and 2, and I was joined the team with Sommeliers Australia at the time, and we were doing a huge amount of tastings there. And then the Quartermaster Sommeliers came out, and again I was one of the first crew to do that, 1 and 2, and then really that was really the catalyst of having a lot more education opportunities for younger sommeliers to come up through the ranks. It was more structured than it certainly was then.
I mean, you've been so integral in developing, the industry and the sommelier kind of experience in Australia. But I want to go back a little bit to what you're talking about in a restaurant floor. You were named Sommelier of the Year in 2008. What was your time like on the floor, and what did you love about being on a restaurant floor, and what were some of the things that you perhaps didn't love so much?
Because it's been so long since I've worked in restaurants, I have a wonderful nostalgic view of it. And I worked at, I suppose, when I was lucky enough to get that award, I was actually working at 15 in Melbourne. That's the Jamie Oliver restaurant. But really probably what it came back for was when I was at Taxi Dining Room, and we had got Restaurant of the Year the year before, and we had a really big list, and we had a really good crew. So I think working in restaurants, it was the excitement of sharing amazing wine, because Melbourne at the time was really embracing a whole range of different food cultures, and that's from all over the world, which was amazing. So as a result, there was more particularly European wines coming in. So and then also at the same time, there was this interest in Australian wine of different varieties and all that. So there was this really sort of groundswell of really exciting things happening. And I think the one thing I really miss is the camaraderie. It was like we were all in this together kind of vibe. And I know that sounds a little bit, again, rose-coloured glasses kind of thing. But we all worked hard. We played hard. But I think we also worked together. So we would regularly catch up with mates at other restaurants, whether it be Circa or anywhere really, and we'd catch up after work and taste wines and just get interesting bottles and talk about it. And I think I really missed that connection with people. And then also the customers as well. Like you've always got I was really bad. I could never remember customers' names, but I could remember their faces and what they drank. And again, I think it was that just, again, excitement of really exciting wines. But again, that people were generally curious about it. And how do you take a complex question and then summarize it up in 30 seconds to a minute? Because really that's the role of the sommelier. You got a list of, Taxi, we had 2,500 wines. We had to find what somebody wanted within their price point, matched to their dish within 30 seconds to a minute. And I think that was the real challenge that I really liked. I really enjoyed. And I hope, and I think I have, and I've taken that for what we do today still, is in that with events, whether it be Palooza or Mold Cheese Festival or even Piccolo recently, is how do you take a very complex topic and condense it? Sometimes people in wine talk about we want to dumb things down. I hate that word. That just gives such disrespect to the people who are in front of you. I think it's a way to simplify the message and empower them to make a decision and feel comfortable in that decision. I think that's the real trick, and I hope we still do. That's really what I still take through to today with the events that we do. Does that answer your question?
It definitely does. It definitely does. And I'm so passionate about this as well. I feel like we really align when we talk about getting to the heart of the messaging. And like you said, it's simplifying, it's also just making it accessible. But I want to ask you, what does excellent wine service look like to you?
Oh, gee, great question. Really great question. Excellent wine service is present when it needs to be, and is just, I'd almost say, they anticipate where that customer's going. I think fundamentally, yes, absolutely, I want knowledge. Yes, I want excellent service skills. These are all ticking the boxes. But at the end of the day, I'm here to have dinner with my beautiful partner or my friends. I'm not there to be lectured or educated. I'm there to be sparked with conversation around that. But it's like anything. The best service is the one you don't even notice, right? And you go to a restaurant, everything just works seamlessly, and you're like, this is great. Like the service staff, they were there, then they weren't, and then it all just flowed really well. And I think, like any front of house person, you always chase that perfect service where everything just works, and you never get it, right? You never get there, but you sort of you chase it. So I think go back to services that's seamless, really. That also listens to what I'm saying, and provides me with an experience that I'm looking for, and can potentially take me out of my comfort zone a little bit, but not too far out. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. And I'm really glad that you mentioned the word education and that it's not a part of it, because I still hear a lot of people today say sommeliers are there to educate, and I totally disagree with that, because I do think they have a lot of information, but you're not there for a schooling. You really are there for an experience, and so that should help you on your way to have a wonderful experience. And you're right, it's about adaptability, isn't it? It's like read the customer, read what they're there for, and then provide it. And so you have to be a chameleon. You have to be able to change your colours and read what's happening, and then go, how do I make you have a great experience, whatever it is?
Yeah, totally. You don't know who that person is in front of you. You don't know their experience. And too many times I've heard, when some wanker sommelier starts telling this person about what the wine is and all that, and they end up being the winemaker. So it's like, it's like, well, no, that's wrong because I made it. But it is the education. I like the word empower, because it's enabling that person to make a decision based on their own comfort zone. And if a sommelier can do that in a restaurant situation, fantastic. If I'm looking to explore and go, hey, let's take me on a journey here, absolutely go for it. And sometimes you're going to hit it, sometimes you won't. But there's a mutual sort of understanding of I'm in your hands, let's go. But also, as you said, be a chameleon, observe that person. I think that's really an essence of hospitality in general, right? You've got to observe the room and listen to what the customer is saying. Again, I go back to my early days in learning about wine, was listening a lot, hearing what they're saying and go, well, actually, yeah, this person said this. Okay, maybe we could take them there. But again, still be able to take all that information, distill it down in a very succinct and understandable way.
Sounds easy, right?
Oh, no, it totally is. It's an adage anyway. It's like even in sort of public speaking, or they say, it's not about you, it's not about you, it's not about you. I think that's that thing at the core, really. It's, again, another sommelier mate said to me once, again, Lick and Riley said to a young gun som who is probably getting a little bit pushy with certain things, and I don't know if I can say this. You might need to edit this out. I said, mate, this wine list is not your Venice wet dream. This is, we're here to service the people, take them on a journey with a level of expectation, but still give them something with comfort and service and hospitality, really.
Oh, whoever said that is my absolute champion. I love that. And people need to hear it more.
So good.
I mean,
Lincoln Riley. Again, Lincoln Riley is the word with the frame of wisdom.
Oh, bless him, bless him. You've always championed that accessibility of wine, and you have so much humility. But in a restaurant setting, do you also think that there is a place for a bit of tenacity and a little bit of a place for ego? Is that necessary sometimes?
Gee, ego. Ego. Maybe if we reframe the word ego and to call it confidence. I think in hospitality there is a lot of ego, and ego can go down to a world of, when I think ego, I think the bad parts of hospitality to a point, and that goes into bullying and all of that stuff, which again, I come from that. But probably towards the tail end of that generation of hardcore militant chefs. And so there's probably a bit of a triggering thing, but I think absolutely you need confidence. It's absolutely confidence. Yeah, I think that's part of it, because you've got to back yourself. And you have to be confident because you're stepping on the stage of the restaurant floor. You've got to really back yourself. And again, for a chef or putting out a dish or recommending a wine, that is confidence, because you're backing yourself. And you're saying that this is what I recommend, and this is what I put myself behind that. But yeah, I know what you mean about ego, but I just, for me, I see that part as that goes down a very different path of hospitality, which I hope and has been changing a lot. And that's when I say, and that goes into a particularly male-dominated industry in the past, and thank God that is changing significantly. However, there is still that undercurrent.
Yeah, I think ego does have a negative connotation, even if we kind of look at the word and think more personality traits. So I like that you said confidence, because I always found it was walking a fine line between humility, accessibility, but then also as a woman, I also found that need for confidence and assertiveness when, perhaps I was, maybe sometimes, being pushed over a little bit by a particular strong-willed customer that wanted to let me know that, as a woman, I probably didn't know what I was talking about. I always found I was like, okay, that's when I need a little bit more of that kind of strong, assertive poise to make sure that I can command a little bit of respect as well. So I think you put that very well, because you're right. And you've always championed women. You've always, really had a place and a voice for making it a very respectful and inclusive society, which I really appreciate about you. Yeah.
Thank you. I hope let's face it, women are better tasters. They've got better palates. They're actually generally better at it. And I hope it is, as you said, like that experience from what you've had from whether it be restaurants and customers and also wine people in general, is that assumption that you don't know enough because of your gender just fucking pisses me off. And has always annoyed me. And thankfully, yourself and to your generation of sommeliers coming up through the ranks have really championed that and proved all the naysayers so wrong. We're not there yet. But it's certainly, I like to think, a lot further along than it has been. And then again, we're always reminded of certain things in the media that pop up, and not so long ago, where we have older white male commentators saying stupid shit, and you go, oh, come on, guys. Like, seriously, are you that stupid? The world has changed. Move on. Just move on.
Yeah, it's never been more present, has it? Too funny.
Oh, seriously. I opened up my social media the other day going, you've got to be kidding me. Are you that stupid
Go.
to say something like that?
Crazy.
And I'm sure everyone knows who we were talking about.
I'm sure they do. I love that. We got deep. We got right there real quick, and I'm happy because of it. I want to ask, you've had plenty of experience in media and wine journalism. I mean, I've got a million questions for you, so I'm going to have to move through them. Otherwise, I can't extract everything I want from you. Tell me about your experience in wine journalism.
Gee, I wouldn't call myself a wine journalist. Probably a wine ranter, if anything. I think if I write anything about wine, it's probably. I hope it comes from the heart. Like if I'm genuinely enthusiastic about something, I can't help but say that. But in terms of wine journalism, especially coming from a sommelier background, and I've asked this question a lot, and maybe I've asked this to you once, I can't remember, but when these great songs going, I've been asked to write a tasting note for a magazine or a publication. I go, awesome. Who did you think of when you wrote that tasting note? Was it the person you see on a daily basis in the restaurant floor, or did you think of another wine writer reading your review? And I can tell you 100% of the time it switches to another wine writer. And that's the challenge. It's like, hang on a minute, that's a problem, because that goes into you're an excellent communicator because you do it on a daily basis, and you've just dismissed that skill because then you're automatically thinking of generally, dare I say, an older and predominantly male-dominated wine media landscape judging your tasting note. So you're trying to appeal to that audience who barely make up 1% of the wine drinking public, and that's that's the problem. So if anyone's writing about wine, and there's so many amazing writers, is having a fresh voice and thinking about the person in front of them every single time. If there was any bit of advice, it would be that.
Yeah, I think it's any time you're writing, you're thinking about who's reading this, who am I doing this for, what are they going to get out of it? And if it's a bunch of boo hockey that hardly anybody understands, I mean, that doesn't serve anybody. Nobody's buying that wine if they can't understand the language around it. And that brings me down to accessibility. And it's something that you talk about a lot, and it's something that you do sensationally. It's in everything that you do. Talk about a little bit about education and mentorship and what that means to you.
Everything. Everything. I've been very privileged in my career to have access to some great mentors, and I will always be, and always to any sommelier out there, my door, email, phone is open to any sort of advice that I can share, but not from a point of I know everything. I certainly don't. But mentorship is key. And I think with mentorship comes a place of feeling comfortable and safe and not judged. And again, that probably brings back into that question around empowerment of helping and confidence. And if you can help somebody be empowered with knowledge and confident in their role, they're only going to grow and excel. And creating a culture around, and in this context I say education, because you do have to, there is an educational point with learning about wine now. There's books and reading and all that type of thing. Yes, absolutely, but still maintaining yourself and your own personality to grow and develop with your own opinions. I think that's key. And I think sometimes I get nervous sometimes where there's an emphasis on one particular style of education, like you have to do this, whether it's the Court of Master Sommeliers or WSET. Yeah, absolutely, they have a significant and important place, but don't lose yourself and your own personality. Don't become a robot. So you want that personality to come through, and mentorship is key. Like it really is. So anyone out there, just drop me a line.
I love that, and you're right. Sometimes I hear younger people say there's no one to look for it, and I think that it comes in both parts, that you need to put yourself out there by asking for help or asking for someone to guide you, putting yourself forward, but also people like yourself saying, hey, I am available, it's, you just need, and saying that is really important. But did you have someone that you feel has mentored you or there's someone that you look to?
Oh, so many. And as a matter of fact, a lot of them are women. Angie Bradbury would probably be one of my greatest friends and mentors. She has helped guide me, especially in terms of my business, hugely. Has given me the confidence to do what we've done, massively. Another friend of mine, Justine Bloom, who was an incredibly smart brand strategist, really helped me understand what we were trying to do, what the essence of what Pinot Palooza was, and helped me distill down all of that information. And then in terms of wine, I've been I've been very privileged from a lot of, a number of male, wine hospitality people, from winemakers to whatever. There's a number, but yeah, I think what I learned a lot from people like Angie and Justine, was that the importance of empathy in what we're trying to do, and a reminder of hospitality first, and not ego. That sometimes it is that competitive nature in wine a lot, with especially with the male-dominated industry, that ego comes into play. And I'll tell this story briefly. There was this one moment, and it was when you work hard in industry and you get to a point, and you're at a wine table, and I've worked so hard to get there and do all this, and I had that moment of clarity where I looked around the room, and they were all men, and I kind of said to myself, I don't like you, and I actually really don't like you. What the fuck am I doing here? And I started to question, going, hang on, this is what I'm supposed to work my career to do. And I had to step away, because it was just like, that's not who I am. I don't feel comfortable. The anxiety that I had every single time I'd go into that room with those people, it was just really unhealthy. I just wanted to be surrounded by people who were more like me, and confident and be surrounded by, there was my friends and family that was gender balanced and curious, and that's really what I wanted to do, because it wasn't representative of the day-to-day that I saw from festivals or events or my hospitality brethren. I think it's that, mentorship is key, getting the right mentors. And I think now that there are a lot of really great people out there who are there to help, and just asking. I suppose we could bring it back to hospitality. It's like the hardest thing, if you're in a hard service, is putting your hand up and saying, hey, my section's going down, like I'm going down, but it's key, because if you don't, the whole restaurant goes down as a result. So being confident enough to go, hey, my section's going down, no problem. And as soon as anybody said that, you had a brigade of people behind you backing you up and supporting you. It wasn't about, oh, that person's doing a shit job. It was like, no, we're all in this together. Let's go. Like, you need a hand, no worries, we'll help you, because you knew that if that person who helped you asked for help, you would be there in a heartbeat. I think that's what good mentoring should be, is if somebody said, I would like to be mentored, you've got my attention, and I'll help, because even that point, that first part is a big step.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I love what you said about hospitality, because I think what hospitality in essence does really well is hospitality of our own specific club. And it's a club of experience and heartache and hard work and service and dedication to other people. And then we do that really well in looking after our own team, which is saying, you know, we went through it together, we're in this, we're going to come out the other side. And like you said, it's, you know, it kind of like that feeling of going to war with other people and then kind of, it's surviving, you know.
It is. It 100% is. And again, it's the whole, when I say restaurants or hospitality, it's the entire brigade. You know, and, you know, being front of house is also hard. Being a chef is hard. You know, chefs don't have a monopoly on stress and anxiety in hospitality. They don't. And that stems from all aspects of the business. So I get a little bit triggered when I just hear very chef-focused stories about hospitality. It's like, hang on, mate. Like,
I know.
I can tell you some stories.
Totally. I always say that too. I say, you know, you're dealing with like-minded individuals that are all back here, and we're dealing with the front of house, which is humans. And do you know how erratic and random they are? Like, they are so random. You don't know what they want or what they're going to do next. And humans are just the most bizarre, you know, species ever.
Open kitchens were the greatest invention for hospitality ever. Like, because then all of a sudden you couldn't hide. And again, from my time in restaurants, I'd take my chef, you know, they've said this about this, well, just tell them to get fucked. It was like, oh, you know, thanks, that's really helpful. You know, that's really helpful. You know, well, you know, come on, like that's not a result. That's not an answer. And yeah, open kitchens are the best inventions ever.
Yeah, you're like, look at this crazy person I'm dealing with. Look at this. Oh, so true. I want to talk about Bottle Shop Concepts, which you established in 2013. Now, that has been no small undertaking. Tell me about the journey of 2013 and where you are today. I know it's a lot to cover, but give it a go.
I've probably spent a lot of time with my therapist talking about that. But, Bottle Shop was an idea of, came from just wanting to jump into festivals. And the first festival we did was Pinot Palooza, and that was back in 2012. And I had another business, which I sort of separated from my then business partner, and then just wanted to go ahead and make this all about it. And Bottle Shop Concepts came from trying to find a name for this new business. And I typed in Bottle Shop Proprietary Limited into the ABN search, and it was available. And I was like, what? How did Bottle Shop Pty Ltd in Australia be available as a name for a company? So I was like, okay, great, we'll take that. But the whole idea about it was to focus on wine events. And so we did Pinot Palooza, and yes, Game of Thrones, which was such a lull, you know, and then really grew from there. And it was funny. But again, Game of Thrones, it sounds so silly. Like, honestly, people would dress up. I never said to anyone to dress up for this event. People would, like, punters and producers would dress up and we'd just taste wine. It was so ridiculous. However, the whole idea of it was to make it fun and accessible. And the greatest, I think, compliment I ever had from a guest who said at Game of Thrones, because she was walking around looking a bit sort of nervous. I said, "Hi, here you go. Can I help you?" And she said, "Yeah, I've never been to a wine tasting before." And I was like, "Oh, awesome. Come here. Let's go." Like, you know, I think there was that way of sort of, because it was so silly, people could feel comfortable, and that was a really good gateway. I figured if they could come to Game of Thrones, then they would go to Pinot Palooza, and then they would go to Rootstock. You know, and that, you know, which I miss Rootstock. It's still one of the greatest food and wine events ever in Australia. And then, look, we rebranded Bottle Shop Concepts to Revel, I think, in 2017, and that's, I suppose, really was sort of growing, and we did Sake Matsuri. We had a Greek wine event called Uniphilia. We did a Malbec Day. Yeah, it was all very much based around wine, but then, of course, mould. We did that in 2017, and now it's the same size and scale as what Pinot Palooza is. It's incredible. So, you know, it's been a journey, but I like to think that we're still again, this sounds so wanky, it's marketing speak, but I still think we're in hospitality first. I hope that we see, we literally run an event like we would run a restaurant service. We brief half an hour beforehand. The first and last impressions are absolutely critical. All of those things, in essence, it's that idea of hospitality and making it fun and accessible. And at the start, I would always say to winemakers, if I hear any mention of Beaumet levels, trellising systems, malolactic fermentation, or any other winemaking bullshit, I'll give you a red card. It's tell them about who you are, why you're here, why you love what you do, and what's special about your place, because people connect to people. They don't connect to stainless steel tanks. And it's like, and that's the thing, was I remember, training, young somms and go, tell me about this wine. And they'd pick it up and go, well, it's picked at 13.5 Beaumet, did its primary fermentation stainless steel, and it was transferred to New French oak. And I was like, you've just lost me. You've told me nothing about this wine. Tell me a story. You've got 30 seconds to a minute in front of somebody, get it back down to that essence. And that's exactly the same with an event for a wine producer. People say, what do I say? I said, well, start with hello. Say hello. Do you like wine? Yeah, cool. What sort of styles do you like? Okay, great. Start a conversation and help how we talk from the producer point of view. And I get sometimes with wine, we have our own language that is so, we talk about, the deconstruction and wine judging and analytical points. Wine show judging is an autopsy. We're dissecting a product, a glass, what's in the glass. And then the trick is sometimes with wine is we take that analytical wine dissection and then try to communicate that to a person. You can't sell autopsies. You can't sell it. That's going to appeal to, I don't know, a very small percentage of people. And if they're into autopsies, there's probably something quite weird and wrong with them. But I think with again, going to the events, I was like, just tell them a story. Why are you there? Everyone's, we could all say that, we're a 5-star, Halliday rated winery, specialising in cool climate viticulture and sustainable practices. What's unique about your story? Why are you here? And I hope that's grown and grown. And through Revel, with things like Pinot Palooza, and I think one of the big things that I loved, and this, I was reminded about this recently because we did a new low and zero alc event called Piccolo in February, was community. Of building a community of winemakers and cheesemakers and now low and zero was the start of that community that we're all doing this together and, let's see what happens, and engaging with an audience like that always, that keeps me going in terms of what we do, of how do we nurture that audience and listen to them, go both ways, and then just continue to grow. It's been a journey. It's been a journey, Shanteh. And let's not talk about the COVID years. I mean, there wasn't a great period for anybody, but particularly mass gatherings. We were the first to go and the last to come back, but we survived. We're still here.
I can't even imagine what that was like for you. I thought about you often and thought, what you do is so important because you are able to break down those walls, make a place for everyone to be included. And as someone that attended Pinot Palooza as a paying entrant and somebody that's also, contributed with you, but it was just always such an experience because it was so fun. It was so fun. People are literally tripping over themselves to get in the door, and then they just have a great time. And, from comedians to politicians I have met at Pinot Palooza, and we're all talking wine and we're all comfortable, and it is just such a safe place. But it is something that's really, really hard to do. And I'll share with you the other day that I had an experience where I came home and I was really frustrated at that. I was engaging with a few people about wine, and I saw their insecurity and sense that because I was involved in wine, I was somehow judging them when something really random just came up about wine. And there was, that kind of, poncy snobbery, making fun of what I do a little bit. And I came away and I was so upset because I thought, why am I upset? Do I want them to take me seriously? No. What's going on here? And I dissected it and I thought, I'm just upset that barrier is still there, that somebody doesn't know me, just knows I'm a wine professional and automatically assumes something that, they're not going to be good enough, or that they can't talk about wine, or that I'm a snob. And I just thought, and that's why it's so important to have these events where we break it down and we get people involved and we go, you know what, if you enjoy wine, that's all that matters.
100%, Shanteh. Like Pinot Palooza, we market Pinot Palooza like a music festival. Game of Thrones, we market it like a TV show. Why? Because when you ask someone what they think about wine, they feel immediately intimidated. You ask them what they think about music, they don't have the same issue. They'll tell you their favourite producer, that what's your favourite TV show. Wine has done an incredible disservice from a product that gives so much beauty and joy and excitement, but it is made it so elitist that people still feel that. No, that's changing, and that's because of really great wine bars and and festivals and a group of sommeliers who are coming up and just threw the rule book away. But it's like, what's your favourite kind of music? Like, there's no right or wrong answer. It's the same with wine. It's really it. And again, like, why I love asking what we do for our Pinot Palooza Club is ask the winemakers to pick a song to listen to on the way to the vineyard and a song to listen to when we drive away. And it's fascinating because you actually start to get to see the true the personality of the person underneath it without all of the wine technical speak. You get to hear an insight into what they listen to on a daily basis. And again, with wine drinkers, and again, I hate the word consumer. I've really, when talk about wine consumers, I hate that. Cows consume. People eat and drink and communicate and love and get excited. And so I think I like to think of audience and people, and making them feel comfortable. But yeah, I don't know. It frustrates me with wine sometimes. It's like, it's so good, it's so delicious, and we make it so frigging complicated. And yes, there's a place for technical and dissections, and absolutely, it's like watching a Gus Van Sant movie like 7 days a week. Like, I couldn't deal with that trauma, or David Lynch movie every night of the week. Every now and then, I just want to watch, the Avengers or Guardians or Star Wars. Like, is it a super technical? No, it's not, but it just gives me joy. Like, it's just like, wine doesn't have to be a technical experience. It can just be a wonderful, easy, everyday experience. And there's a time and a place. And I think one of the best advice I ever had in wine, and it was, again, by a woman, where she said, and she was a bit posh, she said, "Daniel, my darling, wine is either a chat, conversation, lecture, or sermon." And at first I thought she was a bit silly, but then I really thought about it. She goes, well, the chat is you're catching up with a mate. What's the wine? Who cares? You're just having a chat. You haven't seen them forever, right? So it's just fueling that chat. Conversation is like if you went to a barbecue, you don't know anybody, you take something in a bit of a story. I discovered this wine at, I've tasted this wine the last time I was in France, and it's really nice, and blah blah. So it's a conversation starter. If you want to get technical, you can, but it's just there, like it's an interest side of things. Lecture, think about it as a dinner party. That your friend's gone to the effort of cooking you a 3-course meal. So you know what, take something a bit special as well, and you sit down and you have a meal and you let the wine open up, and you can probably spend a bit of time talking about it if you want to, or if it's there, it's a bit more serious. And then there's the sermon, which is the stuff that probably we've gone to so many times, where it's all about the wine, where you've got 5 wines in front of you and trying to pick the crude Burgundies from, no, it wouldn't be Burgundy anymore, we can't afford that, but you got to pin the tail on the donkey and you're dissecting it. So if you take the chat to the sermon, you'd be laughed out of the room. But if you took the sermon wine to the chat, it would be completely out of context, and you wouldn't get the same experience. Wine can be whatever it wants to be. And I've always said the right wine for the right occasion for me is more important than the right wine with the right dish.
Yeah, too true. And I love that analogy. It's a great way to kind of change the perspective a little bit about it. And I wonder if it is so much about language. And like you said, that, I used to kind of sometimes ask guests in restaurants, not do you like the wine, but like, how does it make you feel? And I think, like you said, finding a communication line, like, what are you comfortable? Because I think it's unfair if someone says in a restaurant, if I know we need to communicate what is going to be in the bottle and everything, but we need to find a way to do that for all people. But, if someone says I don't like it and they don't have the language to tell you why they don't like it, we have to find another level of, like, what kind of experience did you want to have from it? Or like you said, how did it make you feel? If music, you can relate to that, then, so I wonder if it is just about language, which is our stumbling block. And like I said, I mean, minds like yours are exactly why I want to do this podcast and why I want to keep doing this, because I think that we have so much further we can go. But we have to be dedicated to it, and we have to realize that we're, like you said, we're not there yet. We need to keep moving.
As you said, language is key, right? And it's also the people who are talking about it as well. You're so right. I think people know more about wine than they think they do. It's just that they're being taught or made to feel intimidated about expressing their opinion on it. But everyone's got a different olfactory memory. This is getting a bit nerdy and technical. They've got different ways of describing pretty much the same thing. Like, the wine doesn't change. It's just wine people could have 5 wines in front of them and not have the same preferences. Like, we can't even figure that out. So how do we expect, all wine drinkers or consumers, such a bad word, to have the tools to communicate that? But you're right, it's communication and how that's been spoken. And, it's like saying, I love this once, it's like, the wine's really quiet and it's whispering to you. It's like, okay, well, whispering can be 2 things, right? It can be really quite seductive. It's like, what are they saying? But it can also be really annoying because you're like, I can't hear what you're saying.
Or creepy.
Or creepy. Exactly. It could be 3 things. So it's different ways. Everyone's got a different way of interpreting what's in the glass because they're different experiences. And I think that's great. And maybe that's because I kind of maybe it's the hospitality in me where I lean into chaos. I'm better in chaos. And Peter Marchant, we worked together for so many years, an amazing communicator with events, and we were hospo born and bred, so we would be at an event and he'd come up to me and go, everything's really smooth, isn't it? I'm like, yeah. He goes, I don't like it. I'm like, neither do I. Something's going to go wrong, isn't it? I'm like, I know. Quick, let's go, let's get ready because it's going to come. It's that hospitality spidey sense. But
totally. The eye of the storm. It's terrifying.
I know. Chaos. Give me chaos. But look, Shanteh, I think you're so right. And it's language, it's communication, it's being open to and listening to what people are saying and being curious, just curious. That's the biggest thing. If anyone's into wine, it's curiosity. It's why we do it. And, if we can help empower people to make a decision so the next time they go to a restaurant or a wine bar or a bottle shop, they feel a little bit more confident about what they're purchasing, job done.
Well, I think you are leading, as per usual, leading by example, and we're grateful for it. I could talk to you all day about this. I'm really getting quite a lot out of this for myself. I should probably think about my listeners as well. So talk to me about 3 drinks for the rest of your life. What are they going to be and why?
Oh, when you said that, told me you were going to ask this, I was like, this is such a good question. And I was thinking, what would it be? And I said, one, I have to say, I haven't been, for some reason, I'm not drinking a lot of beer these days, and I have half a beer, and it's really disturbing. But I've been drinking that amazing Tina drink, that zero alc drink. It is so refreshing. It has become my beer replacement. I just smash cans of that. It is so delicious and really refreshing. So that would be one. And I figured the second one, it'd have to be like really nice rosé, because you can't drink rosé upset. It's pink and fun, and it goes across. It could be a pre-dinner. Could go with some up to sort of main sort of food on a summer's day on its own with friends in the park. It's quite. There's a lot of utility with rosé, and the styles are very vast, and it's really like interesting. But also, it's a nice drink that I have. It reminds me just to calm down and it puts a smile on your face. And then I think it's got to be Pinot, right? Like I can't not. I have to acknowledge Pinot Noir in all its wonderful varied forms, because you get you get fizz out of that, and you can have white Pinot, but Pinot Noir, and of course from Gippsland Pinot, being that I'm now a fully fledged Gipster living in South Gippsland. But again, Pinot Noir, because it's the grape variety that excites me the most and also disappoints me the most. Because, when it's good, it's great, and when it's bad, it's just expensive.
Yeah, it's all the emotions. You're right. It's the roller coaster.
And if you give some, like Pinot Noir is one of those varieties that they could be the blokiest of blokes, and they start spurting poetry when they talk about it with a lot of S words, svelte, sophisticated, subtle. It's quite funny, and it's again, talk about show judging. It's the grape variety that polarizes people the most, and it's the discussion and the curiosity that comes from it. And heck, it's a variety that has helped probably define my career with things like Pinot Palooza, and every year there's so many amazing wines, and watching. Especially Australian Pinot Noir and of course New Zealand Pinot Noir come to the front. The evolution of great Australian and Kiwi Pinot is pretty mind blowing. It's I drink a lot of it.
Yeah, me too. Do you know it's so good. It's too hard to put into words, really, isn't it? But I actually got myself in a bit of trouble the other day because I was working with somebody, and I certainly cannot name names, and someone said to me, we want this to be the biggest thing that's happening in wine and the biggest event. And I was like, Pinot Palooza is the biggest damn event that's happening in wine. I don't know what you guys are talking about, but you're not even going to come close. And then I was like, oh God, I'm working with these people. Shut up.
Look, Palooza is so much fun. Like, but it got too big. Now, as much as I love a Pinot mosh pit, as it was at the Royal Exhibition Buildings, and 4,000 people drinking one grape variety is wild. We're certainly not going back that way. We've come back to a bit more session based and just pulling it back. It's like let's just. I don't think post COVID I was like, oh, that's I was looking at photos of Pinot Palooza, and they're just packed full of people, and it was great, but also I'm like, oh God, no, that the thought of that just gives me anxiety. And spittoons, there was open buckets of people's spit everywhere. I'm like, oh my God, that's so disgusting.
Oh, some would see opportunity there. What are you talking about?
Oh, I know. But it's good fun. It's always been fun. It's nice that it's back and still growing and thriving and evolving.
I'm really glad to hear that for you, because like I said, you guys, you did really get the brunt of it, and I'm thrilled that people are gathering again, and I'm thrilled that your events are happening, because they are very necessary. They are important in our industry, and they're doing wonderful things the world over. So congratulations, Dan. It's been stratospheric chatting to you today, and I knew it would be. And I just, have so much appreciation and love what you do, and always love having a good old chat to you.
No, mate, Shanteh, thank you so much. And you're an absolute legend. I love what you're doing with this podcast. I listen to so many interviews, pretty much all of them, and what you're doing around, again, your own community here is potent and exceptional. And you're a voice we should be listening to.
Thank you so much, mate. I hope we get to have a drink sometime soon. And thank you very much for being on the podcast. Cheers to you.
Cheers.
This is Over a Glass. I'm Shanteh Wale. Stay tuned for more stories from the world of wine and drinks. Listen in every Thursday on your podcast app. Follow us on Instagram at overaglasspod and contact us at overaglass@deepintheweeds.com.au.